What is up, YouTube? It's Josh. This is the Den of Nerds. It's Top 5 Tuesday, and today's Top 5 is going to be my Top 5 MCU films. Now, these films are all really great in my opinion. I don't think Marvel has missed. I don't think they've missed a step whatsoever. So it was really hard because they are all so good. So if your favorite film isn't in here, don't feel discouraged. They're all awesome, and this is of course just my opinion. So let's get right into it. Now, first of all, I want to start with an honorable mention for the Avengers 2 Age of Ultron. And I wanted to put this on here. I don't think it quite cracks the top 5, but it's a really good film, and a lot of people talk a lot of shit on this film. They say that it's nowhere near its predecessor, that it's not that good of a movie at all, and even Joss Whedon, when the movie first came out, was kind of down on it. Nowadays, if you ask him, and I've seen in interviews, he says, no, it's a pretty good film. I think it's dark. I think that it's just does so much and accomplishes so much in its lifespan and brings us into like a new stage of the MCU, giving us images of what is to come in, phase 4, phase 5, and at the end of phase 3. So I really like that film. So honorable mention goes to Avengers 2 Age of Ultron. Now let's go to number 5. Now number 5, in my opinion, is the first Avengers. And a lot of people are going to be like, whoa, what? That's not in your top 1 or 2? And I have to say no, and I think that you'll understand once I get a little further into it. But of course Avengers is going to be in my top 5. It was unprecedented when it came out. It just blew my mind. The interactions of all these characters, it just solidified their place in this history of cinematic storytelling when it comes to comic book movies. It was such a fun ride. I remember loving all the little character interactions. Loki, of course, brilliant villain. Getting to see Thanos at the very end. Very cool stuff. Take yourself back and remember going into the theaters and watching that film for the first time. I still watch it every once in a while. I've probably watched it at least once a year since it came out. It's just a really good ride, and set the stage for so much goodness to come in the MCU. And as a stark comparison, you can kind of look at what, the distinguished competition has been doing lately, and it's all to catch up with what this one film established, which is pretty crazy in my opinion. So let's go to number 4. Number 4 is Guardians of the Galaxy. The poster that I've got up there. I absolutely love this movie. And I'll be completely honest with you, when I first saw this movie, I came out with kind of mixed emotions. I was like kind of weirded out by the tone. I wasn't sure if it fit in to the MCU in the way that some of these other movies did. I mean, it's very James Gunn. It has like a really James Gunn flavor, and I actually really like Guardians, and I like Bendis' run on the book, and I could see like pieces of it here and there, but it's really like its own thing, its own flavor, especially Gamora. Gamora in the cinematic universe, much different than the one from the comics. And so it took me a little getting used to, but upon a second and third viewing, I found myself absolutely loving it. It's like a Star Wars movie in the MCU. I think Thanos is great. And Ronan the Accuser, brilliant portrayal. And Rocket, of course, amazing. Drax, so hilarious. Nothing goes over my head. My reflexes are so good I would catch it. And it's just so much goodness like wrapped up in this film. I think it's really fun, and it gets the number 4 spot for me as far as my favorite MCU films. Now let's go to number 3. Now number 3 on this list is a phase 1 film, and it would be Thor. I think what they did with Thor is ridiculous to contemplate. They took a guy in a red cape with a magic hammer who talks in an old Englishy accent, and they made it believable. They made it cool. They drew you into Asgard, Rainbow Bridge, all these concepts that like just remind me of like crazy Jack Kirby kind of stuff, and I just had no idea how they were going to pull it off, and they nailed it. I mean, Chris Hemsworth is Thor, And the movie just does a great job of bringing in this character that I just didn't think they could pull it off. So basically, because I didn't think they could pull it off, and because I love that kind of stuff, like mythology and the battling and the ice giants, and of course Tom Hiddleston is their best, to this date, best villain in the MCU. All of that combined into making a brilliant film that I think has to be in everybody's top 5. If you don't have Thor in your top 5, really think about what that film was able to accomplish, and I think you'll find a spot for it in there. So that would be my number 3. Now let's get to the nitty gritty. Let's get to the top 2 MCU films, in my opinion. So number 2 goes to what I call a flawless movie. A flawless movie that really solidified the MCU, set the bedrock for everything else, and that would be Iron Man. Iron Man, okay? So much to talk about when it comes to this movie. It's literally infinitely watchable. You can watch it just over and over again, and it's brilliant. The pacing, the story, the characters, the turns, everything. Absolutely brilliant, okay? And funny thing about this movie is that this was, of course, the first one that Robert Downey Jr. got signed on for, okay? And he did not think this movie was actually going to be that successful. And I just remember when the movie first came out and how, I mean, you'd probably remember, it blew up and had like massive success. And I remember watching the MTV Awards where Downey came out, introduced kind of like as Iron Man, and everybody just went nuts. And he's like, still in theaters, by the way. Still in theaters. And I just remember that moment, and it just kind of like crystallized for me. I was like, holy crap, like he is Tony Stark. Like this is brilliant. And the success that he has had and the MCU has had built upon him and this movie. Because remember, the Hulk, the remake with Edward Norton was first. They had creative differences. Norton, big problem, walked off. I mean, now we've got Ruffalo, so super big problem. But then you go to Iron Man, which the studio, by the way, Marvel Studios, did not want Robert Downey Jr. They wanted to cast somebody much younger, but the great Jon Favreau was like, no, we need this guy. We need this kind of charisma to build off of, and it worked brilliantly. Tony Stark is Iron Man, so the flawless Phase 1 film, Iron Man, is my number 2. Now let's get to that number 1 spot. And I bet a lot of you have guessed it, because as I talk to a lot of MCU fans out there, this tends to be most people's number 1, and for good reason. I think the film is incredible, and that would be Captain America 2, The Winter Soldier. This film, so great for so many different reasons. If you take out the Captain America aspect, if you take the Marvel out of this film, you still have one of the best espionage, spy, thriller films of all time. This film is brilliant, and you watch the behind the scenes on this. The Russo brothers, they aimed for the proverbial stars in every single scene. They wanted to do a chase that rivaled the best chases they've ever seen in cinema. They wanted to do shootouts that rivaled the best shootouts they've ever seen in cinema. All of these different things, and they brought it. They brought something that I had never seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe before. This vibe, this turn, and not to mention Robert Redford saying, "Hail Hydra." Holy shit. When Redford said, "Hail Hydra," I knew that the nerds had won, that this was a turning point in pop culture. And the Russo brothers tell this really awesome story about how they got their start at Sundance. And if you know anything about Robert Redford, you will know that Sundance, the festival, is his baby. This is the thing that he started to give back, okay? And the only reason he was in Civil War was because his grandchildren really, really like these films. So you know that line where he says to Sam Jackson in the movie, "You've got to do me a favor, and you've got to have Iron Man stop by at my grandson's birthday." Super meta, because that's the only reason he's in the film, is because of his grandchildren and how much they love the Marvel films. super cool stuff, okay? So I could go on forever about the Winter Soldier. You know it's dope. You know it's the dopest dope. So that, like many of you, is my number one. Let me know in the comment section, do you agree with this list? Is there a film that you think I should have on here? Remind me why. Love hearing about this stuff. Maybe I'll give it a rewatch. Do you disagree, agree? That's what's fun about top fives. Everybody's got a different top five, and we like to argue peacefully about the agreements and disagreements that we have. All right, so let's check that nerd card. As always, the question is going to be about the first official MCU film, which is of course the remake of the Hulk. And the question is, who directed that film? Search your memory banks, try to go back, figure out who directed that film. Answer the question in the comment section below. Like the video if you like content like this. Subscribe to the channel to get all the videos that I'm going to be putting out, including top fives every Tuesday for the foreseeable future. I like to always say, I hope you're having an awesome and nerdy day. See ya!